All right, so I want to talk about God of War 2 because God of War Ragnarok is out, and I reviewed God of War 1 a few days ago. My first time playing God of War 2 was on Twitch literally 2 months ago. I'm not even making that up. I played God of War 1 on PlayStation 2 when it came out, but I never went back to play God of War 2. God of War 2 was one of the latter PS2 games, it wasn't one of the early ones. And by that point, I'm not even sure what was going on in my life. I think I had other things going on, or maybe I was in a relationship. I really do not remember why I never played it, but I've heard good things about it. And after playing the game, I can say that yes, it is a great game. God of War 2 follows up on God of War 1 with not only a more intriguing storyline, which is, Kratos' feud, I guess you can say, with Zeus, and there's time travel and there's a bunch of new characters, more Greek mythology. The storyline is, I think, even better than the story of the first game. And the first game has a great story. I feel like the one thing the God of War games have always delivered on is great storytelling. Great storytelling, and that makes the game, when you have a game with a great story, not just like a JRPG or a game like God of War, you don't have to have a great story to have great gameplay, but it's much more satisfying to take Kratos on an adventure and have a satisfying ending. And this game, provided a lot of upgrades from the first game. First of all, the camera was a lot better. The puzzles were a little bit trickier, I would say, but not too much. I love the weapon upgrades you can get, like a big ass axe in this game. Like, I love the abilities you can do. They still kind of relate to the first game, but they're not exactly there. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the boss fights. I mean, there was a couple boss fights that I think, and one of the criticisms of this game is what I'm about to tell you right now. I think that, and for the record, I played the game on normal. I think that some of the boss fights, the issue with them, and there's a few, there's not that many that I had a big issue with, but there was a couple to where I couldn't figure out how to actually progress the fight and beat the boss. I was playing on Twitch, so I had people help me, but there's one boss in particular near the end of the game that you fight that there's these two pillars, and you have to sort of climb on his like tentacle. It's a giant like octopus thing, and that fight was really difficult. And when I say difficult, I don't mean like, oh, it's like embarrassingly hard like a Nintendo game. It was, in a sense, challenging, but you have to drag like a body onto a button to make it go up. And what it was is that I couldn't really figure out how to beat him, and I had to have help from the chat to do it. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, man, if I was playing this game back in the day, when it first came out on PlayStation 2, how much fun would I actually have? Would I be upset and angry at this? Would I have any help? How long would it take for me to beat this guy? And I feel like, yeah, I could always go online and look up the answer, but that's never been my style. Thankfully, people in the chat, I always welcome people on my Twitch to help me with these games. Not spoiling, but tell me where to go, because it adds more interaction, and it makes the people feel like they're involved, and they are involved. But without that, that there were a couple of parts in the game where I'm like, I would be stuck here. I would be stuck if it wasn't for, me understanding or having help to understand what's going on. That was a very interesting thing. But there are tons of improvements. The one thing I love most about God of War 2, besides the storyline, the gameplay improvements, is the fact that you have a very fun New Game Plus, where you can add attributes like one-hit kills and extra red orbs, and you can do a lot of things in New Game Plus to play the game again and enjoy it just as much, except maybe more, because now you're like even more powerful and you can run through enemies. And it's really a great game for relieving stress or getting your mind off of a problem. That's what I think video games really are best at, is getting our minds away from our real life issues. That's why I enjoy them. I think that people saying that video games are bad for you and whatnot, I've always been against that, even though there may be some market research to say that that's true. At the same time, I don't think it applies to everyone. I think if somebody takes a video game and goes nuts with it, I feel like in part they were already nuts to begin with. You know what I mean? They already had something wrong with them to begin with, and this game just exacerbated that, So I feel that way about it. about games. This game in particular, though, man, like the dungeons and the locations of this game were incredible. Like you had these really beautiful vistas, these big palaces that you do the puzzles and they move, and that was gorgeous, just absolutely gorgeous. This game really pushed the PlayStation 2's graphical abilities as well as the space, because it's not a huge game. I think I beat it in like 10 hours, but it is a bigger game than the first one. But for some reason, it went by faster. Maybe because I was enjoying myself more. I feel like God of War 2 for the PS2 games is definitely peak. A lot of people have said it's their favorite God of War game. I still got to go back and play 3 and finish the PS4 one and, of course, Ragnarok. Maybe the PSP ones too. I think I might play those next. But God of War 2 absolutely is stellar compared to the first one. No question about that. It's pretty much universally loved. When this game came out back in 2007, it won the PlayStation Game of the Year, and many people consider it, one of the best games of all time. And the whole team over there, the whole team over at Sony, Tim Moss, Steve Caterson, they're phenomenal. Did a great job with this game. The music is also totally fantastic. I love that. There really isn't much to complain about. I mean, as a fan of Greek mythology, going to Hades and seeing the Titans, like that's all cool. And also, without going into spoilers, the ending of the game is directly going to tie into God of War 3. So if you haven't played any of the God of Wars, I would suggest going back and playing 1, 2, and 3, because they do form one big story. And I haven't played 3 yet, but I know based on the ending, what people told me, that 3 is the follow-up. So I would highly recommend everybody go back. Obviously, Ragnarok is red hot, and if you enjoy that, go back and play the other ones, because I think they still hold up. For a PS2 game, it really does. Obviously, it won't look as good as Ragnarok, but it really does push the envelope. The combat is better. There's also a post game thing called Challenge of the Titans, where you have to kill enemies without getting hit, and all these really difficult challenges to get extra stuff like behind the scenes and costumes. And so there is, replayability, and every time you play the game, depending on what difficulty, you can get better stuff. So it's phenomenal. I really enjoyed also the battle with the Sisters of Fate. Again, don't want to spoil it, but it was an epic. Dude, the boss fights in this game are so epic, yo. So epic. I mean, right now, yo, I'm telling you, if you have not played God of War 2, again, not perfect. There are some frustrating issues. There are tons of frustrating issues with the game as far as some of the cryptic boss fights and cryptic puzzles. You may need some help with some parts. I won't lie to you about that. But man, oh man, you have got to get your hands on God of War 2. It won a bunch of awards, and for the right reason. So next up, I'm going to play the PSP God of Wars over on my Twitch, twitch.tv/BigDGeekdom101. I also watch Dragon Ball over there. So join me, take care of yourself, and let me know in the comments your memories of God of War 2. I just experienced it this year, and I love it. Take care. We'll talk soon.